The Sterling Crown Hotel lobby shimmered beneath towering chandeliers, light dancing across polished marble floors. A line of black-suited guards stood firm, blocking off the VIP area from everyone else. In the corner sat a man in worn jeans and a plain shirt, his daughter beside him. His name was Caleb Vance, a single father doing his best to provide for his child. Then came Darius Kane, head of security, his voice dripping with arrogance. "Wrong place, buddy. This isn't for you," he sneered, as laughter spread among the guests. Caleb placed his cracked phone on the table and calmly rolled up his sleeve. Scars and strange markings appeared on his arm, and the room fell silent. Meet Caleb Vance, 38 years old, father of one, once part of the Iron Veil Division, a covert task force believed to have died in a secret explosion. Now, just a quiet building engineer raising his daughter alone. Every morning, Arya folds a paper crane and slips it into her father's pocket. "As long as the crane stays safe, you'll stay safe, Daddy," she says, her voice full of faith. Caleb smiles softly, wishing safety could be that simple. That evening was supposed to be ordinary. He was waiting to finalize a maintenance contract while Arya sat nearby, watching her tablet. Across from him, she folded a napkin into another tiny crane, her small fingers careful and precise. And then, tension filled the air. The hotel manager approached, his tone cold. "Sir, the maintenance offices are downstairs. This lounge is for guests only." At the bar, whispers began. "A single dad trying to act rich," one woman murmured. "Probably can't even afford childcare," another added cruelly. Arya froze, her cheeks turning red, her paper crane trembling in her hand. Caleb clenched his jaw but stayed calm, for her sake. "It's okay, sweetheart," he said gently. "They don't know us." But inside, the humiliation burned deeper than words. Then, out of the corner of his eye, Caleb saw something wrong. Across the lobby, Darius Kane and two guards surrounded a young woman in a black dress. She looked trapped, her back pressed against a marble column. "Come on, have a drink with us," Darius said smoothly. "The night's better with company like you." The woman shook her head, her voice steady. "I said no. Please, leave me alone." "Don't be shy," another guard murmured, stepping closer. "You're lucky we're even asking." At that moment, Caleb knew this wasn't going to end well. Caleb's eyes locked on the young woman's. She was silently pleading for help, scanning the room for a single ally. No one moved. Guests stared into their glasses. Staff looked away, pretending not to see. Then Darius grabbed her arm. That's when Caleb stood, slow, steady, deliberate. His cracked glass stayed behind on the table. Arya looked up, her half-folded paper crane trembling in her palm. Caleb's voice cut through the noise, calm and unshakable. "Let her go." Darius turned, smirking. "Wrong man, wrong place, wrong time," he said with a mocking laugh. The VIP section erupted with laughter. Two worlds, privilege and struggle, were about to collide. Before we move on, where are you watching from? It's wild how one story inside a luxury hotel can reach your screen. Hit subscribe and stay with me, you won't want to miss this. Darius's laughter grew louder, meant for the crowd. "What are you supposed to be, maintenance boy?" he shouted. "A janitor playing hero?" Mocking voices joined in. "Single dads always think they're noble," one man sneered. "Probably broke, living off handouts," another added cruelly. Arya froze, tears filling her eyes as she watched her father stand alone. Caleb brushed his shirt pocket, feeling the tiny paper crane she had placed there that morning. Then something shifted. His instincts caught what others missed. Security cameras turned away. Exit lights off. Someone wanted this unseen. Near the bar, he spotted the manager slipping an envelope to Darius when he thought no one was watching. Money changed hands. The woman's voice trembled. "I don't know these men. I just want to leave." Caleb spoke again, his tone sharp as steel. She said no. That should be enough for any man with decency. Darius stepped closer, chest puffed out. Wrong night, buddy. You picked the wrong script. Phones came out. Guests started recording, eager for a show. Look at this guy, someone laughed. Playing hero while his kid watches. Bet his daughter's embarrassed, another whispered. Arya covered her face, shaking. Caleb felt something awaken inside him, that same cold calm that once kept him alive through missions no one ever spoke about. But this wasn't a battlefield. It was worse. Because his daughter was watching it all. The woman tried to break free, but Darius yanked her back with false charm. Don't be like that, he said, grinning. We're just having fun. Let me go, she cried. The night's young, another guard sneered, blocking her path. We're not done yet. And Caleb saw it clearly now. The bartender was gone. The front desk was empty. The valet missing. The entire staff had vanished, leaving the wolves to feed. Someone had cleared the stage. Cameras turned away. Exits sealed. Staff gone. Whatever was about to happen, someone wanted it unseen. Please, the young woman begged, her voice trembling. I just want to go home. Darius tightened his grip. Wrong answer, sweetheart. You're coming with us. The crowd didn't move. Phones kept recording. To them, this wasn't danger, it was entertainment. She's being dramatic, one woman said, smirking. Security knows her type, another added, sipping her drink. Caleb's instincts sharpened. Years of training came flooding back in seconds, 3 aggressors, no exits, cameras dead. It wasn't chaos, it was a setup. But what cut deepest was the sound of Arya's quiet sobs. His daughter was watching men laugh at her father's courage. The hotel manager stepped in, his politeness clearly forced. Sir, these gentlemen are valuable clients. Please, sit back down and let us handle this. Caleb didn't move. When someone says no, he said evenly, that means no. Darius chuckled darkly. You really don't know who you're dealing with, do you? Caleb's voice hardened. Actually, I do. For the first time, the laughter faded. The woman's eyes met Caleb's, desperate, pleading. Please, she whispered. Help me. That was all it took. Darius shoved Caleb hard, trying to make it a show. Wrong place, wrong fight, he growled. Caleb didn't budge. He stood like a wall of stone, calm and unbroken. Last warning, he said quietly. Let her go. Or what? Darius sneered. You'll call the cops? We own the cops here. He motioned to the guards circling Caleb like wolves. Wrong man, wrong night, one of them said. Time to teach you a lesson. Arya wiped her eyes, gripping the edge of the table. The paper crane in her father's pocket looked so small, so fragile against the threat before him. Darius twisted the woman's wrist. She cried out in pain. Last chance to walk away, maintenance man, he mocked. Phones lifted higher. The crowd leaned in, hungry for his humiliation. But Caleb didn't step back. He calmly rolled up his sleeve. Scars cut across his forearm, deep, jagged, old. Marks from battles most people only heard about in whispers. And there, burned into his skin, was the symbol that froze the room, the Iron Veil insignia. The laughter stopped. A guest whispered, "No way, that's Iron Veil." Another dropped his phone. That unit was wiped out. Nobody survived. Darius's smirk vanished. "That's impossible," he muttered. Iron Veil was destroyed. Caleb's eyes locked on him, steady, fearless, cold. "Wrong man," he said softly. "You should rethink who you're dealing with." Silence filled the lobby. The balance of power shifted in a heartbeat. When his sleeve rolled up, the crowd understood. Some scars don't need words, they speak for themselves. Do you agree? Some wounds tell their own stories. Drop a comment right now. What happened next took less than 15 seconds. Caleb didn't lash out like a movie hero. There was no rage, no wasted motion. What came next was precision, pure and practiced. The cracked glass he had left on the table became his first tool. When Darius lunged for the woman, Caleb stepped in and drew the rim sharply across the guard's wrist, not to cut, but to strike the exact nerve cluster. Darius's hand went limp, releasing its grip in shock. Darius started, but Caleb was already moving. A nearby chair became his next weapon. One smooth turn, a shift in balance, and the chair's legs pinned the second guard against the wall, restrained but unharmed. The third man tried grabbing him from behind. A fatal mistake. Caleb spun, snatched a strip of receipt tape from the concierge desk, and in 3 lightning-fast moves, locked the man's thumb, forcing him to his knees, completely immobilized. The lobby froze. 3 trained guards down, none seriously hurt. Caleb stood still, calm, his breathing even, as if nothing unusual had happened. The laughter vanished. Arrogance melted into silence. At the table, Arya watched wide-eyed. Her father had moved like water, fluid, controlled, unstoppable. Impossible, someone whispered. The young woman straightened, rubbing her wrist. You don't know who I am, she said, her voice trembling but steady. My name is Celine Hart, CEO of Hartwell Global. A ripple of shock swept through the room. Hartwell Global, a $15 billion empire, known nationwide. I've been working undercover, Celine continued. We suspected this hotel chain was used for money laundering. These men, she said, pointing to the guards, are part of the network. They bribed the staff to keep quiet. Caleb's tone didn't change. Doesn't matter who you are, he said quietly. No one has the right to put their hands on you. Celine studied him closely. Wait, she said slowly. Your movement, the precision. Her eyes widened. Your ghost, Jack Caleb from the Iron Veil unit. The name hit the room like an explosion. Gasps filled the air. Phones raised. A man near the bar whispered, "No way, that's him." Caleb picked up his cracked glass and returned to his table. That man disappeared a long time ago, he said softly. Celine shook her head. No. You were their commander. Everyone thought Iron Veil died in the Ravenfield explosion. Whispers spread like wildfire. People began recording, realizing they were seeing a living ghost from legend. Iron Veil, someone whispered in awe, was the most elite covert task force ever created, and that man right there led it. The Iron Veil unit had been erased from every record after a classified mission went wrong. Gone, as if they never existed. Caleb didn't stop walking. He simply took Arya's small hand and led her back to their table, ignoring the stares, the whispers, the glowing phone still recording. Mr. Caleb, Celine called after him. Today, you didn't just save me. You exposed a criminal network that's been operating across 3 states. Right then, sirens filled the air outside. Police stormed the marble lobby within moments. The hotel manager appeared, pale and shaking. Miss Hart, I can explain, he stammered. You can explain it to the prosecutors, Celine cut in sharply. We already have every recording, every bribe. The 3 guards were cuffed and dragged away. Detectives moved in, forensics teams pulling data from the servers, financial logs, footage, transaction trails. Evidence of a massive laundering ring was everywhere. The same guests who had mocked Caleb now sat silent, phones lowered, faces pale. Celine crossed the room and stopped beside him. Caleb was quietly helping Arya pack her paper cranes. Mr. Caleb, she said softly. I owe you more than a thank you. No need, he replied without looking up. I just did what anyone should do. Celine's eyes fell on the tiny paper cranes scattered across the table. Did you make these? She asked gently. Arya nodded, shy but proud. I make them for Daddy. They keep him safe. Celine smiled, lifting one between her fingers. They're beautiful, she said. And maybe, they really do work. Across the lobby, Darius was being led away in cuffs. His grin was gone. "This isn't over," he shouted. "You don't know who you're up against." Caleb looked up, calm and cold. "Oh, I know exactly who you are," he said. "And now, everyone else does too." Applause spread through the room. Those who had mocked him now clapped, cheered, even tried to shake his hand. But Caleb didn't care about fame or headlines. "Time to go, sweetheart," he said softly. "You've got school tomorrow." Celine sat beside them for a moment. "The Iron Veil program saved lives," she said quietly. "You trained the best." Caleb's gaze stayed on Arya. "I train maintenance workers now," he replied. Celine smiled faintly. "And you teach them what real strength means, that it's not about control, but protection, about knowing when to act and when to hold back." Arya looked up with innocent curiosity. "Are you famous like my daddy?" she asked. Celine's smile warmed. "Your daddy's the famous one, sweetheart. He's the real hero." "I know," Arya said proudly. "That's why I make him Cranes. Heroes need extra protection." As the last evidence was collected and the lobby cleared, Celine turned to the remaining guests, and the cameras still rolling. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, her voice steady, "what you saw tonight wasn't just one man protecting one woman. You saw someone standing up for what's right, even when the world mocked him for it." She lifted one of Arya's tiny cranes, holding it in the light. "This little girl makes these for her father because she believes they keep him safe." And tonight, maybe everyone in that room started to believe the same. "Tonight," Celine began, her voice calm but filled with conviction. "This man didn't just protect one person. He protected all of us, from predators, from corruption, and from the lie that money makes you untouchable." The room fell silent. Every camera stayed raised, but no one dared to interrupt. "Tomorrow," she continued, "Hartwell Global will launch a new foundation called Line in the Sand. Its purpose is simple, to train security professionals in boundaries, ethics, and accountability." She turned toward Caleb. "Because sometimes, the smallest gestures draw the most important lines." Caleb rose, gently taking Arya's hand. "We really should go," he said softly. As they walked toward the exit, Celine called out, "Mr. Caleb, the world still needs teachers like you." Caleb paused at the door but didn't turn. "Tonight, I'm just a father," he said quietly. Then he and Arya stepped out into the night. But by the time they reached home, their story had already caught fire online. Within 3 hours, it spread across every major platform. "Wrong Man, Single Dad Reveals Military Past" became the #1 trending topic worldwide. The clip of Caleb's calm, precise takedown was shared millions of times. But what people remembered most wasn't the action, it was the message. News anchors replayed Celine's speech about integrity. Investigators dug deeper, uncovering what she had hinted at. The Sterling Crown's entire management team was part of a multi-state laundering network. The 3 guards Caleb had subdued were tied to organized crime groups using luxury hotels as cover. The man everyone had mocked, the Wrong Man, had quietly dismantled an empire of corruption. That night, in their small apartment, Caleb and Arya sat together on the couch watching the news. "Daddy, you're on TV again," Arya said, pointing at the screen. A reporter stood outside the Sterling Crown Hotel. The man now being called the Paper Crane Hero is Caleb Vance, former Iron Veil commander, once believed killed in action 3 years ago. Caleb reached for the remote, but Arya placed her small hand on his arm. "I want to see," she whispered. On screen, Celine Hart appeared at a press conference, cameras flashing. "Mr. Vance didn't know who I was," she said firmly. "He saw someone in trouble and acted. That's not heroism, that's simple decency." She lifted one of Arya's paper cranes toward the cameras. "This was made by his 10-year-old daughter, who believes it keeps her father safe. Tonight, her father kept all of us safe." The broadcast zoomed in on the delicate folds of the tiny crane resting in Celine's hand. "Tomorrow," she continued, "Hartwell Global will officially launch the Line in the Sand Foundation. Our mission is to remind every security professional that you don't need special forces training to know right from wrong. Arya clapped her hands, her eyes bright with joy. Daddy. She likes my cranes. Caleb smiled, a quiet, genuine smile, the first in years. She does, sweetheart, he said softly. The next morning came with a knock at the door. When Caleb opened it, it wasn't a reporter or a camera crew. It was Celine Hart, dressed simply in jeans and a sweater, holding a small box in her hands. Behind Celine stood a woman with camera gear, her presence quiet but deliberate. Mr. Vance, Celine said gently. I was hoping we could talk. Caleb studied her for a moment. About what? About changing how the world thinks about protection. They sat at the small kitchen table in Caleb's modest apartment. Arya played on the floor nearby, folding another paper crane from an old newspaper. The camera stayed off. This wasn't an interview. The response has been overwhelming, Celine said, showing her phone. Thousands of security professionals have reached out. They don't just want to learn how you moved last night, they want to understand why you moved. Caleb shook his head slowly. I'm not a teacher anymore. Celine smiled. You never stop being one. Last night, you showed everyone that one person, just one, can make a difference. She handed him her phone. The screen was filled with messages. A security guard in Tokyo refused an order to harass a guest, saying your story gave him courage. A bouncer in London stopped an assault using your approach, de-escalation first, precision second. A father in Chicago defended his daughter's friend at a party because he remembered your words. Caleb read them silently. His expression softened, the weight in his shoulders easing. Wrong man is becoming a symbol, Celine said quietly. People are realizing that the ones everyone underestimates are often the ones who do what's right. Arya looked up from her paper crane. Daddy, are you going to help more people now? Caleb knelt beside her, meeting her bright, curious eyes. What do you think I should do? Arya held up her new crane, folded from newsprint. I think your crane should teach other people how to be safe. That afternoon, Caleb agreed to one interview, only one. The reporter was calm and respectful. She asked about his past, his daughter, and that moment in the hotel. What would you say to people who think you were just lucky? She asked. Caleb thought for a moment. Luck had nothing to do with it, he said softly. Training helped, but what mattered most was seeing someone in trouble and choosing not to look away. What about those who say civilians shouldn't get involved? There are no civilians when someone's in danger, Caleb replied. There are only people who act, and people who look away. The interview aired that evening to record-breaking viewership. Before it even ended, Caleb's phone lit up with calls, offers from agencies, corporations, and media networks. He declined every single one. At dinner that night, Arya asked, Daddy, why don't you want to be famous? Caleb smiled faintly. Because the important work happens quietly. Like last night. Like when you make cranes for people you care about. A week later, the Line in the Sand Foundation held its official launch. Celine refused to host it in a boardroom. Instead, she chose a small community center filled with folding chairs and warm light. The audience wasn't made of executives. There were hotel workers, teachers, guards, and parents, ordinary people choosing to stand for something better. Caleb stood quietly at the back with Arya, still wearing the same worn jacket from that night. Celine took the stage. Her words were simple, her tone resolute. We're not training warriors, she said. We're training protectors. People who understand that real strength comes from restraint, not aggression, Celine said. Behind her, the foundation's emblem glowed, a stylized version of Arya's paper crane, elegant and bright. Everyone trained by this foundation will carry one, she continued. Not as decoration, but as a reminder that the smallest actions can create the biggest change. Applause filled the room. After the ceremony, Celine found Caleb outside, helping Arya into their car. Thank you, she said softly. Caleb looked at her, puzzled. For what? For showing me that real power isn't about position or money, she replied. It's about choosing to protect, not to exploit. Caleb glanced toward Arya, who was surrounded by a few children, patiently teaching them how to fold cranes from scrap paper. She's the real teacher, he said with a faint smile. I just follow her lead. On the drive home, Arya sat in the back seat, holding a new paper crane she had folded during the event. Daddy, she asked gently, what if everyone had paper cranes? Caleb smiled. Then maybe everyone would remember to take care of each other. Outside the window, city lights drifted past like quiet stars. Something had changed, a small act that rippled through the world, all starting with two simple words, wrong man. 1 month later, Celine stood on stage at the Lion in the Sand Foundation headquarters. Behind her, a massive screen displayed the paper crane symbol, now recognized around the world as the mark of ethical protection. The auditorium was packed with thousands, security officers, hotel workers, teachers, and parents, all inspired by one man's quiet courage. Wrong man, Celine said, smiling. Or maybe, the right person at the right time. Because of one father, the world remembered why boundaries matter. Thunderous applause filled the hall. This foundation has already trained over 5,000 professionals in ethical protection, she continued. Because real strength isn't about force, it's about knowing when to draw the line. The camera swept across the audience, searching for the man who started it all. In the very last row, half hidden in the shadows, sat Caleb and Arya. He still wore the same worn jacket from that night. Arya held a fresh paper crane in her hands. Daddy, she whispered with a grin, my cranes are flying everywhere now. Caleb nodded, eyes fixed on the screens showing Lion in the Sand centers opening across the world. Yeah, sweetheart, he said quietly. But they'll always find their way home. Celine's voice carried from the stage. We've received messages from protection teams across 6 countries. A simple paper crane pin now reminds them that protection means respect, and that power always comes with responsibility. As the ceremony ended and the crowd began to disperse, Caleb and Arya quietly slipped out the side door. They had almost reached their car when Celine called out. Caleb, wait. He turned, Arya's small hand safe in his. I wanted to give you this, Celine said, handing him a small envelope. Caleb opened it slowly. Inside was a faded photograph, him in uniform, standing with his Iron Veil unit team before the Ravenfield mission that had changed everything. The edges were worn, but the faces were clear. Old ghosts, frozen in time. Caleb looked at the photo for a long moment, then glanced toward Arya, the living proof that some missions never end. Thank you, he said quietly. Celine smiled. No, Mr. Vance. Thank you for reminding us that heroes don't disappear. They just choose different battles. As Caleb and Arya drove away under the city lights, one of Arya's paper cranes rested on the dashboard. Its wings fluttered with the breeze from the open window, as if ready to take flight. Because sometimes, the smallest things, a folded crane, a quiet stand, a single act of decency, can change the world. On the back of the photo, written in a steady, familiar hand, were the words. Wrong man. No, right person, right time. And we still need you. Caleb's eyes lifted from the photograph, meeting Celine's. There were questions in his gaze, the kind he hadn't asked in years. Your former commanding officer reached out to me, Celine said softly. He's been following your story. He wants to know if you're ready to train, a different kind of soldier. Arya tugged gently on her father's jacket. What does that mean, Daddy? Caleb knelt, his eyes level with hers. It means some people think Daddy should teach others how to protect people. Like how I teach kids to make cranes, she asked innocently. A faint smile curved his lips. Exactly like that. Arya thought for a moment, her tiny brow furrowing in concentration. Then she nodded. I think you should, Daddy. Everyone deserves to feel safe. Caleb looked at her, really looked at her, and for a moment, time itself seemed to pause. The screen faded to black. A single paper crane appeared, slowly rotating in a golden light. A calm voice spoke. There are scars that aren't meant for showing off, but for remembering. True honor means protecting the boundaries of others. And a father's real strength isn't in shouting, but in the quiet that makes others stop and listen. Then, across the screen, a final question appeared. If you were him, what would you choose? Would you keep living quietly with your family? Or step forward so the world remembers what wrong man really means? Comment right now. Your answer might write the second part of this story.